Well, one of the biggest stories coming out of the Middle East this week is President Trump's latest efforts to move the Gaza ceasefire into its next and far more difficult stage. On July 30th, President Trump announced a new roadmap under which Hamas would give up its weapons and Israel would complete its withdrawal from Gaza. Now, the International Board of Peace would continue overseeing this transition period while the Palestinian administration, security, and reconstruction move forward. Now, that sounds very straightforward on paper, but in practice, it is already running into the same problem that has troubled this process from the beginning. And that is the question, who moves first? Israel is saying that it won't withdraw until Hamas is fully disarmed. Hamas wants firm guarantees that Israel will end its military operations and complete its withdrawal. Now, Israel and their strikes have continued, and Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it very clear that Israel hasn't accepted a withdrawal before disarmament formula. Now, the Board of Peace has now said that withdrawal will follow the completion of Hamas's disarmament. So clearly, this isn't a finished peace agreement. It's just another fragile proposal resting on two sides that still don't trust each other. So who governs Gaza? Who verifies that Hamas has actually disarmed itself? Who guarantees Israel's security going forward? Who rebuilds Gaza? Who prevents the next war from beginning after the world has and their attention has moved somewhere else? You know, these questions have challenged the world for decades. Now, as I've read through the reports, I have found myself thinking back over the decades, over the long history of Middle East peace efforts. We can remember Camp David, the Oslo Accords, the Roadmap for Peace, the Annapolis Conference, the Abraham Accords, and more ceasefire negotiations than most of us can count. You know, some have produced what seemed to be real progress, and others collapsed before the ink was dry. And yet one thing remains, my friends, one thing remains remarkably consistent. Israel continues to occupy the center of the world's attention. It's not going away. It's increasing. And you know what? This doesn't surprise anyone who studies Bible prophecy. Long before Israel returned as a nation in 1948, the Bible's prophets described Jerusalem as a city that would draw the attention of the nations. And once again, the world is searching for some larger structure capable of doing what individual governments have not been able to do. They want somebody to impose order. They want someone, some structure to guarantee security. They want someone or something to produce a lasting peace. Now, at the same time, we see Pope Leo XIV enjoining cooperation across nations and institutions and ecclesiastical traditions. In his 2026 encyclical on human dignity in the age of artificial intelligence, he calls for shared moral standards, international cooperation, and what he describes as building the common good. You know, this follows his earlier appeal for the world's religions to work together for peace, justice, reconciliation, and the ethical use of technology. Now, I mention this because these developments reflect the same human instinct that we've watched for decades, centuries. When the problems become global, the world begins looking for global answers. Political leaders look for stronger international authority. Religious leaders look for broader, more authoritative ecclesiastical cooperation. So different roads, perhaps, but both moving towards this larger system of influence, something we're watching. So this observation here brings us back to Scripture. Daniel describes a coming ruler associated with a covenant that will shape the final prophetic period. Revelation 13 describes political authority reaching across peoples, nations, and languages. Revelation 17 later presents a religious system exercising extraordinary influence over kings and nations. The Bible presents a future world in which political power, international authority, and religious influence becomes increasingly interconnected. And headlines like these deserve our attention because they show how naturally the world is learning to think in those terms. Human governments will announce peace and still struggle to produce it. International boards will draft roadmaps and still find that hatred can't be negotiated out of the human heart. Friends, history is not drifting without direction. Things are not falling apart. Things are falling together. We know the one who declares the end from the beginning, and we know as believers that the peace this world is searching for will finally come when Jesus Christ returns as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So, until then, we keep watching. We keep comparing the headlines with Scripture and remembering that every event unfolds under the sovereign hand of God. I'll see you next time on Watchman's Minute.